This guy is a mainstream anthropologist. In this video, he talks about how hunter-gatherers view work differently than people in the West. So let's see why he thinks hunting animals is cooperative, and why social pressure doesn't count as a rule system.
In many ways, humans are kind of evolutionary freaks.
Huh. Must be the alien DNA.
We're much more capable of learning skills than Australopithecus ancestors a few million years ago were. I bizarrely ended up getting an internship at a merchant bank. We had a manager, and he would pepper his talks with this kind of Darwinian language. Banking is a survival of the fittest, dog-eat-dog world out there. Life is a continuous process of competition.
He's about to disagree with this.
The truth is, evolutionary history just isn't a constant competition.
This guy's wrong.
Most animals spend as much time as they can relaxing, taking it easy, or playing and enjoying themselves.
From his Western perspective, he's saying playing. Playing has a very specific social aspect to it, especially in animals like human beings that are cooperative and social creatures. Playing can be competitive in the sense that you're competing with other people for the affection of others. Schoolhouse, like pecking order type games. It's not like it's not work.
This idea that everything is continuously battling for energy is nonsense. I spent most of the last 25 years documenting hunter-gatherers as they took their worldview and tried to engage with our worldview in very uneven terms, and to try and make...
Hunter-gatherers that exist today have been contacted by greater civilization for hundreds of years. They are inherently maybe not like the hunter-gatherers of 1,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, or back when all of the humans were hunter-gatherers. But there's this assumption in mainstream anthropology that hunter-gatherers of today can be compared parallel to hunter-gatherers of the past, and that's 100% not true.
View in very uneven terms, and to try and make sense of their perceptions of work and our perceptions of work. And what it did was it revealed an entirely different way of thinking, an entirely different way of being. My name's James Suzman, I'm an anthropologist, and the title of my latest book...
This guy thinks he's better than you.
...is called Work, a deep history from the Stone Age to the Age of Robots.
So right here, the leisurely lives of hunter-gatherers. Dude, these people are at danger of being killed by wild animals. Much more common for hunter-gatherers in general to have violent deaths.
When one thinks about hunter-gatherer society, they have imagined a world we endured this horrendous struggle for survival in an eat-or-be-eaten world. Nature was red in tooth and claw, and life was hard, and we learned to accumulate and grab resources. It was a great competition for life, but it seems fairly clear we enjoyed quite a lot of leisure time as hunter-gatherers.
Just because you have some leisure time doesn't mean that you're not fighting for your life at other times.
I went off to the Kalahari, a group of people called the Jinwasi. First hunter-gatherer society that were really studied to see how hard they actually worked. They worked 15 hours in a week, a very different work ethos.
This is a famous quote. It's from this specific group of people. The Kwasi, he's saying a specific tribe within the Khoisan, or the Kong people.
What we do here in the West. The idea of what constitutes work and the way we organize our lives can be very different and very contextual based. Hunting, gathering, fishing, hiking. In the Zhengwa world, those are all considered work. In the Western world, where I come from at the moment, most of those things are considered leisure activities now. The Inuit in the Arctic, the Aboriginals in Australia, and they're of course people like the Jinwasi engage with the land with consummate skill and consummate, in some ways, ease. The Kalahari Desert is an incredibly tough environment. Most of us, if we were dumped there, we would be dead within several days. The Jinwasi, on the other hand, are able somehow out of this seemingly desolate place to pluck out 130 or so different plant species. They're able to hunt 15 or 20 animal species.
What's their credit score? How many college degrees do they have? That's basically what it is.
They're able to do so on the basis of really a marginal amount of effort. Even in the toughest times of year, you're looking at not spending more than 4 or 5 hours a day on the food quest.
I mean, they have great skill with understanding what foods to eat, but that's just their specific skill.
Hunter-gatherers went through intensely difficult times, periods of climatic change, but for the most part, living off the land seemed a very straightforward way of making a living, and we are supremely adapted to making a living as hunters and gatherers. They're typically highly egalitarian. fiercely egalitarian. There are no hierarchies whatsoever. Age does not convey any authority.
I'm pretty sure this is not true for these people, but it's definitely not true for all hunter-gatherers. There are definitely like hierarchies based on age. This is nonsense.
Gender does not convey any authority to anybody. It's incredibly open and
That's
tolerant.
ridiculous.
People don't force things on children.
I
They also realize that there's an instinct. In particular, they say, not among women, but among men. Young men who go out hunting and they bring in their first big animal, they'll strut in and show off. They'll say that potentially risks upsetting the egalitarian balance that makes the society function. Rather than praise a successful hunter, they mock them.
Okay, so this is a famous story in anthropology. Contradicts his point of earlier. Mocking them, this is a social ritual which is meant to continue to produce the egalitarianism. So the egalitarianism is forced. He literally says it himself. It's fierce, which means that it's through social pressure, through like mob mentality. You're forced to act a certain way. You're forced to act this way in egalitarianism. And just because he's not talking about them, or maybe he's not aware of them, but I doubt it, there's definitely real consequences if people don't do this. So it's an absolute lie that there's no sort of social rules, or him trying to present it that way. And I don't know. They get this very noble savage idea a lot of times, and this is the type of stuff that mainstream anthropology produces.
Somebody shows up if they've killed a giraffe. They'll say, this giraffe, this bit of a scrawny giraffe, and it stinks a little bit. There's this great ritual of humility and insult that goes on. And
Yes,
the hunter
this is
will
social
be
control.
expected to behave with great humility. And the way it was described by one man,
Yes,
he said, we
expected.
use it to gentle young men's hearts. To enable leadership to be based purely on context and competence, voluntarily given and voluntarily.
Who judges competency? There's the idea of big men, right? You have leadership that's just based on the willingness of somebody to follow them. And this exists, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily better than us. It's not a one-to-one comparison. Their type of leadership makes sense in their space and in their experience with the world. Our experience makes sense in ours. You couldn't do egalitarianism in a country of 300 million people. That's why communism fails. It doesn't work because you have to create rules to govern it. These people still have rules. They absolutely have rules, but those rules are based on 150 people, more direct patronage.
Resources were shared openly and evenly and done through a system of demand sharing.
A system. He's saying it himself, a system. So who's creating the rules?
In the system of demand sharing, it is in the right of pretty much anybody to go and ask anybody else for a share of what they have. And it is considered extremely rude to turn that person down.
Okay, so it's considered rude. It's extremely rude. I don't understand why he doesn't take a step further and think about what are the consequences to somebody who doesn't play by the rules of the society, because it's not going to be a detention. These are not non-violent societies.
Any circumstances. It stops any kind of authority.
The authority is of the people as a whole.
No zoologist or ecologist will think of an ecosystem as governed by competition. Instead, it will be governed by webs of intricate engagements, some of which are cooperative, some of which are less.
Okay.
This idea that nature
Less?
is a constant.
What do you mean? Wait, okay. Some of which are cooperative, some of which are less. There's symbiotic relationships. There's birds that sit on rhinos and eat the bugs and whatever. But the less cooperative ones are lions eating zebras and outcompeting them. Come on, man. It's not cooperative when a lion eats a zebra. It's kill or be killed.